is up, YouTube? It is your boy NMR Sports here, and we have a lot to talk about today with James Mccann signing with the Mets and David Dahl signing with the Texas Rangers being the two main headlines. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about these signings and see what they mean to their respective teams. Now, of course, the biggest news is James Mccann signing a 4-year, $40 million deal with the New York Mets. Now, this is very interesting because a lot of people expected the New York Mets to sign free agent JT Realmuto, who would have costed them a fortune, but they save a little bit with James Mccann, and they gives them a little bit more money that they could possibly spend on George Springer or maybe even Trevor Bauer. I know I'm an Angels fan, so I really don't want to have the thought of Trevor Bauer going anywhere but Anaheim, but it's definitely a possibility at this point with the money they saved not signing JT Realmuto. Now, James Mccann is a very interesting scenario because we don't really know which James Mccann they're going to be getting. He is 31 years old and he had an OPS plus of 144 last year, which is 44% better than the league average hitter. But career-wise, he does have an 86 OPS plus, which is a lot worse than the average hitter. So we really don't know what kind of player they're going to be getting, the New York Mets, but it does still save them a lot of money at a position that is very expensive if you want to get the top guy in JT Realmuto. Now, with all this money that the Mets are saving by signing James Mccann instead of JT Realmuto, I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get a bunch of other free agents that are available. Obviously, the two biggest candidates for them right now are Trevor Bauer and, of course, George Springer. So I wouldn't be surprised if they sign one or both of those guys, but there are a couple dark horse candidates like DJ LeMahieu, who I personally think they could definitely outbid the Yankees for if they want to sign him. Obviously, they kind of have that hole at second base, so I don't know if they're planning on throwing Jeff McNeil back over at second base and then maybe signing an extra outfielder in addition to George Springer. So who really knows, man? There are a lot of really good outfielders there, so they could always do that, or they could go out and sign a big free agent like DJ LeMahieu. Now, the James Mccann signing was not the only signing in the last day or two. David Dahl also signed with the Texas Rangers on a 1-year, $3 million deal. Now, David Dahl is kind of the opposite of the James Mccann scenario. He is a little bit younger than him, but he had a really bad 2020 season after having a really good breakout 2019 season with the Colorado Rockies. In 2019, David Dahl hit .302 with 15 home runs and an .877 OPS. Compare that to hitting just .183 with a .470 OPS in 2020, which obviously was a shortened season, but you really don't know what you're going to be getting. The Rangers could have gotten a steal, or they could have had a really bad deal just now. So honestly, we'll just have to see what happens in 2021. Hopefully he can get back to that 2019 form he was in outside of Coors Field and prove that he is really good once and for all. The Texas Rangers are going to have an interesting outfield situation going on next year. Of course, they have Joey Gallo in right field. Center fielder is going to be weird. It could be David Dahl. It could be Leody Taveras, who's one of their younger guys who came up and played decent for them last year in 2020. And then you also have Willie Calhoun, who might be moved back to second base possibly. Obviously, they have Elvis Andrus and, Rougned Odor out there. So who really knows? I think third base might be an open spot if Josh Jung doesn't get called up. So we'll have to see. There's a lot of interesting things that could be going on with the Rangers. Who really knows? If they make some other signings or other acquisitions this offseason, they could be pretty good as early as 2022. So we'll definitely have to take a look and see. Now, I know the Rangers had a really bad 2020 season, and they're probably not going to have the best 2021, but I honestly be pretty excited to be a Rangers fan. They got a lot of young talent that they're signing, and could be pretty good for the years to come. So I definitely wouldn't be too down if you're a Rangers fan. I know it's probably going to be a pretty rough 2021, but you guys are definitely looking up, getting a lot of young talent on that squad. Now, also, the Phillies hired a new president of baseball operations and general manager, Dave Dombrowski, who's a very interesting candidate for them because they seem like a team that would be poised to rebuild, but they do have a lot of pieces in place to win now. Obviously, they've been very unfortunate with all of these good pieces like Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, Rhys Hoskins, just to name a few, and not been able to make the playoffs once in the last few years. So obviously they have a lot of pieces in place to win now, and it looks like Dave Dombrowski is looking to move some things around, seeing if he can make them get them to the playoffs sooner rather than later. You would think they bring in someone who would want to rebuild the farm system, maybe trade away a few of those players like Bryce Harper. But it doesn't look like that's what Dave Dombrowski is going to do. Now, if that's the case, then possibly I could see JT Realmuto signing back with the Phillies, but personally I think JT Realmuto is probably going to go over to the Nationals. So we'll just have to wait and see, but Dave Dombrowski is the new GM of the Philadelphia Phillies and hoping to get them to a playoff berth finally. All right, and before we go, we do have one other thing to talk about with the Dodgers signing relief pitcher Brandon Morrow to a minor league contract. He's coming off an injury but he was really good for the Dodgers a little bit a few years back. So we'll have to see if they can revamp his career after coming back from his injury. They also have signed Jimmy Nelson to a minor league deal. So we'll have to see. They have Jimmy Nelson, Corey Knebel, and Brandon Morrow that they're all planning on revamping, who are veteran pitchers who could be very good additions to their bullpen. And honestly, as an Angels fan, if any of one of those three pitchers pans out, I will be very upset personally, because the Angels really need some cheap relief pitching, and if any one of those guys can do even a little bit of a good job in the back of that bullpen, that's something the Angels could have signed. So we'll have to see. I will have a lot more of these videos coming out to you guys soon. So with that being said, I thank you guys so much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you want to see more. I will see you guys next time there's a big offseason move to cover, and you have a great rest of your night.